So, I think it is very easy to say that over the course of the last 5 years, one of, if not the most popular show on television has been The Boys. A TV show that has come from Amazon during the era of superhero and comic book craziness, where we're getting a billion comic book movies, TV shows, and spin-offs every single year from Marvel, DC, and a bunch of other places. And The Boys kind of serves as a weird meta-commentary both on the comic book industry as well as on our world, both in politics, geopolitics, all that stuff. And through its first 3 seasons and the spin-off show Gen V, it has become an absolute phenomenon with fans, a very different comic book experience, a very different superhero experience that offers some gruesome imagery, some brutal violence, but also some great hilarious characters that are so fun and so iconic. Now we now have season 4 of The Boys, at least we have the first 4 episodes, and there's been this weird shift with both the fan base, the critics, and just kind of the vibe of the show. There seems to be this vibe amongst fans and critics that it's just not very good. And it's very odd to see this shift because it's happened so fast. I mean, just last year we had Gen V, which was absolutely acclaimed by just about everybody that watches. It's a show that did very well, both critically and apparently for Amazon. And The Boys Season 3 was also a very big hit, so it's odd to see so quickly kind of the perception of The Boys has fallen off. And I kind of want to talk about in this video why I think this season so far has kind of fallen flat and why people aren't enjoying it. And there's a couple different reasons. Now, first things first, I just want to say that I do not think The Boys Season 4 as a whole is bad. I definitely think there has been a drop in quality within this season, but I still think it is a solid, entertaining show that I am having a lot of fun with, and we also only have 4 episodes. There are going to be more episodes. We don't know where the show is going. So I kind of want to just get into it. Now, the first thing that this season, from the start, you could really feel is that there's just kind of a disjointedness within the characters and the different arcs going on here. Now, this isn't anything really new with The Boys. All 3 seasons have relied on its character ensemble and how each and every one of these characters is kind of going on their own arc, and the arcs sort of interconnect. This is not a new form of story structure within TV shows. You've seen it for decades in the industry, and you've seen it most recently with something like Stranger Things, where you have this group of characters, sometimes they're together, sometimes they're separate, they all kind of have their own arcs, and they come together by the end of the season typically. The Boys obviously has followed that, but this season, in following it, it almost seems kind of undercooked. The show feels like it has really worked itself up to focusing on 1 or 2 plot lines. There are only 1 or 2 plot lines that the audience are really invested in because they have been built up for the previous 3 seasons going into this one. What are those 2 storylines? And as it connects to Butcher and that whole father-son relationship, this son growing up with the powers of Homelander, Homelander trying to mold him into another version of himself, and this season is continuing that storyline. Whenever it is Homelander and his kid, Anthony Starr being brilliant as the character, there's a lot of interesting stuff there, and the arc that Butcher seems to be going down also is something that the audience can grip onto. It's really interesting. He's this man who is dying and is just kind of wanting to settle things out before he goes. And then the other story is obviously Victoria Newman, who is now the vice president-elect, and she, of course, is what seems to be kind of maybe the overall big bad of the universe. If it's not Homelander, I think it's mainly her, and that seems to be kind of the end game, trying to figure out her goals, her plots going forward. That is kind of the big storyline this season's leaning on. And those 2 storylines, whenever the show is focusing on that, of course, Homelander is the star of the show. Whenever Anthony Starr is on camera, you are watching. So whenever that's going on, you're invested. Whenever the Victoria Newman stuff's going on, you're invested. But then you have everything else this season. And the subplots here are just not hitting the same way they have in previous seasons. So you have this whole story plot between Starlight and her followers, right? Her followers that hate the evil soups like Homelander, and you have her followers versus Homelander and his followers, who are supposed to be kind of like imagery, you know, a kind of stand-in metaphor for Trump supporters. Take that as you will. And you have them warring on the streets and chaos erupting in the country. You have Homelander on trial at the beginning of the season and have that whole storyline of him killing the dude of the last season sort of wrapped up very quickly, but it stirred up this chaos in this country of people that are just at each other's throats. And while all this is going on, you have 2 new members of the 7. You have Sister Sage, who is kind of like the main one. She's this new character whose main power is her ability to think. She is smarter than everybody else, and Homelander sort of recruits her to be this person who's going to tell him he's wrong when he needs to be told he's wrong. And we don't know her actual alternative motives here, but she's kind of stirring up the chaos in the country. But there's something about her character that I just find to be less interesting than the other main hero characters they've introduced in previous seasons. I've really liked, in the previous seasons, you had Soldier Boy in Season 3, you had the Nazi chick in Season 2. I thought there was something really quirky about those characters and more fun that I'm really getting out of this one. This feels kind of I don't want to say familiar, but there's nothing really too new about this character yet that I just cannot get invested in her. They're also taking some interesting story routes with decisions she's making with other characters that I won't spoil. I'm interested to see where they go, but I'm just not that into it. Then you have Firecracker, which is a character that on paper probably sounds a lot better than in action. This is a character who's essentially Alex Jones, but as a soup, and she gets recruited to the Seven because she's stirring up more chaos. And you know the problem with this storyline? The main issue I have with the storyline is that through the show's 3 seasons that it's ran so far, it has a very clear message that it's trying to say. A sense of subtleness in its story that doesn't exactly cover up its themes, but it makes it's not screaming it in your face. Whereas in this season so far, through the character of Firecracker and a lot of the other stuff that's going on, they're yelling directly in your face, the audience, what the message of this show is. And if you watch my channel and you watch my other reviews, I hate when you do this in movies, television, writing, anything. I hate anytime you have to look the audience in the face and scream at them what the message is. Because then it seems like you're lecturing your audience, and that never, ever works. It just never works with an audience when they're being lectured, because you don't want to be lectured when you're watching something, you want to be entertained, and if you get a message along the way, good, great, amazing. But the main thing you want to be is entertained, you don't want to be lectured. And this season feels like a lecture so far, especially with that main storyline that they've been spending a lot of time in. It just, every time something's going on there, it doesn't exactly feel like The Boys used to feel. It doesn't feel like this quirky, comic-y, meta commentary on the industry of superheroes, how it connects to our politics in the world, and kind of the commercialization of people and characters and personalities, and how that can kind of stir up cult followings amongst the people. I just don't feel it as much here. And then you have Huey himself as a character who just also doesn't really feel like he has a lot going on this season. He's got this story with his father and his mother that just kind of feels shoehorned in out of nowhere, and maybe it'll go somewhere interesting. End of episode 4 seemed like it's setting up to be something cool where Simon Pegg could actually act, but so far I'm not interested. All the other characters, Frenchie has a very random story arc that kind of came out of absolutely nowhere. You have another A-Train arc that feels very similar to stuff that he's been doing in the last few seasons that's just not connecting to me. The Deep is kind of just moving along what he's been doing. Like, all these characters, a lot of them feel stagnant since season 2, season 3. They just don't feel like they've had much movement, and season 4 is really highlighting that. And I think one of the big issues the show has is it's kind of afraid to take the big punch, and I think the big punch is coming, either at the end of this season or in next season, the final season of the show. Kind of a big swing, a big hit, where they really do something world-breaking. They do something that pushes the story to an extreme level and turns it up and changes it enough to truly bring the audience in and go, wow, I have to see what happens next. Now, I don't know what that is. Is that Homelander going to the White House and taking over the country and truly becoming this tyrant, evil man that we're kind of all expecting to see him become? Is it Victoria Newman, like, blowing up Homelander's head and killing him or something? Like, who knows? Who knows what it's gonna be? But they need to do something just absolutely crazy and earth-shattering to really shake up this plot, because as of right now, it feels like we're just kind of drifting along. I don't know where we're going, and I'm sure where we're going will be a lot more interesting than where we're at, but it just, so far, I think that slowness and that kind of a less than subtle nature of lecturing the audience, as well as just not enough change with a lot of the characters. Not enough interesting focus on a lot of the sub-characters, a lot of the subplots in this show. It just makes all of that feel boring, and all of the stuff with Homelander feels so much better than it usually is, because it's like the only thing you're really clamoring for each episode. Now, we'll see where the show goes. I mean, The Boys is still one of the best shows on TV. Gen V was great. I expect season 4 to get better as it goes on, but I hope, for the sake of everybody out there that loves this show and relies on The Boys to be kind of like this beacon of hope in the comic book industry, I hope it gets extremely better, and I hope season 5 closes the show up in a perfect, beautiful way. Thank God they're ending it at season 5. It probably should have ended at season 4, but season 5, good place to end it. Let's not drag this on. And I'm excited to see what comes next. But let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think of The Boys season 4? Let me know down below. Let me know if you think I'm right, wrong, whatever. Make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, turn on notifications. I post every single day. See you in the next one.